Okay, I'll do a quick intro. So, so we are gathered here because yesterday the Human Rights Foundation decided to announce their latest wave of very, very generous grants. 2 Bitcoin for 10 different types of projects. That's pretty crazy. I don't think I've seen this amount of, this size of a grant announcement before. So that's pretty cool. And the first one is about moving the UI kit to Penpot. And so that's super awesome. I was not, some people asked, I was not aware that this was coming up at all. And as kind of the maintainer of the project, I'm of course very excited about it. And I do hope that, my main goal is not to get the Bitcoin for any work I do, but to make sure that whatever effort anyone does on this leads to the UI kit becoming better and moving forward, and that we have better open source collaboration and anything like that. If I have nothing to do with it, that's cool. If I'm involved with the work itself, also cool. And thank you, the three of you, for joining. I think some other people, because we organized this very spontaneously, they'll be watching the recording. So thanks for tuning in. Just that because if you did miss this call, it doesn't mean anything. And also, I have nothing to say in this grant. Human Rights Foundation put this out there. Anyone can do whatever they want, work in secret, collaborate publicly, do whatever you want. It's open source. You can do whatever you want. But I think for the people here, maybe we can just, I don't know, start a conversation and see where it takes us. Because Chris and Eddie and myself, we also met a few weeks ago. We had a conversation about what could be next for the UI kit. We briefly talked about Penpot. I think each of us said we would go off a little bit and try to investigate how Penpot works. So maybe you have some starting points there. And I also put together a document here with some thoughts and notes, and we can use that for note-taking for anyone tuning in later. I'll also share this real quick. So I put a bunch of my own thoughts in here. There are some links in there. Anything under Christoph's perspective, feel free to ignore it. And then we can just take notes and add more stuff at the bottom here. So I don't know where you want to start. I could just, maybe it's helpful to start with just what the Bitcoin UI kit is for anyone watching who's not familiar. So 3 years ago, the Bitcoin design community started working on the Bitcoin design guide, which is this community resource, around 50 pages or so, with all kinds of information about how to design Bitcoin applications, mostly wallets. We have a getting started section that talks about what makes Bitcoin unique, how to design for it, the whole idea of open collaboration, design principles like self-custody, security, inclusion, all this stuff. There's some introductions to, for example, personal finance, how people will still use money the same way, whether they use euros, dollars, yen, or Bitcoin, right? They still need to spend money day to day. They still have savings, like some of these ideas and how they transport over. And then we have full-on reference designs like the daily spending wallet here, which is, I think, is 12 pages. And there are a lot of screen mockups in there. And as we started working on these screen mockups, we ended up creating a ton of UI, and that turned into the sister projects, which are the Bitcoin, where are they? Bitcoin icons and Bitcoin UI kit. Are the icons even? Yeah, there it is. So Bitcoin icons, which is this here, and the Bitcoin UI kit. And those are now, those kind of spun out of the guide work, and they've become their own resources. And several projects, like Eddie with a joint market gem, that project used the UI kit for the design. The new Bitcoin Core app is using it as a foundation. There's another one that came out recently. whose name I forgot. There are several projects that are using this and implementing it in different ways, using different code frameworks and whatnot. And it's all built in Figma. And now Figma is awesome, but it's also a little bit limiting. There's a lot of stuff. There are a lot of buttons in Figma now. You press them, and then it says, please sign up for a paid account. And these buttons keep increasing in frequency. And some advanced features like what we know from open source, like public collaboration, where let's say, I'm the maintainer of the UI kit, and let's say Chris or Destiny, welcome there, also H, let's say you want to improve a certain part of the UI kit and you want to make a proposal. There's no good way to manage that. You have to talk to me in person. We have to talk about it. I have to manually copy your work over and all of this stuff. While if you know open source and GitHub and all of this stuff, there are really good systems in place. And all of that stuff is enterprise only in Figma. So we're kind of limited with what's possible there. So Penpot is a great open source alternative. And so while the bounty itself basically just says port Figma to Penpot, I would love to see if we can it's not a simple file conversion task, but more like something, how can we move this whole project over to an open source stack using Penpot and improve the collaboration and the possibilities and maybe build some really cool new stuff along the way. That's what I'd love to see. Now, I'm not super familiar with all the intricacies of Penpot. I think that's part of figuring this out as well along the way. So I just put in a bunch of different notes here, and I'm curious to hear what everyone else thinks about this. And I'm also curious if we need to first talk about what bounties are, how they work, how this process works. Yeah, so that was a little bit of background. What's up?
Nice. I like the idea also to talk about maybe the framework of bounties, just to have that inside the introduction, because I think it's also, for me, it's also something new. Yeah, let's do that first, and then let's go to Penpot itself, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So bounties are. So the way it works in open source is anyone can contribute to whatever they want. And if you have motivated people, then that's awesome, and they're just going to do the work. Sometimes people are not motivated enough, and you want to incentivize them. And you can do that by promising them fame and fortune, or you can do that by saying, hey, here's a task, and I will pay anyone who wants to do this. It's like a public declaration that I would love to get something done, and whoever does it, I will compensate them. There are unspoken parts about this that are sometimes pretty ill-defined. Like sometimes the task itself is not very well defined. Sometimes it's not clear what the outcome actually is. Let's say there's a task and someone spends, and it's kind of vague, right? And then someone spends 2 months on it, and it turns out the task is not even possible, or not possible to the way that it was imagined or so. Should they still get the bounty? Or should they not get the bounty? If the task is not well defined, like whose problem is it in the end? So, sometimes, like there was a bounty. Someone on Twitter said, "I'll pay 100,000 sats for anyone who ports the UI kit who adds a dark mode." And that was 2 years ago. And someone else put the bounty in like some GitHub bounty tracker. And then 2 years later, like, people started reaching out, but there was already that was already done, that was in the UI kit already. So sometimes, like in open source, bounties can be kind of weird. So an important thing I feel like at the beginning is to figure out like what actually needs to be done, and also be in sync, because this is a huge bounty. 2 Bitcoin is a lot for a bounty. To also run this past the Human Rights Foundation and say, if we do this, like, does this match your criteria? Because you don't want to go off and build something, put all this effort into it, and then just only realize that you kind of did the wrong thing. This is not different from like my son. Like, he's really good at math, but sometimes his grades are not that great because he didn't read the question correctly, or he missed a part. I don't know if Elvis can relate to this, but it's kind of like that. you want to make sure that in the end everyone's happy. So and I think that, and I as a maintainer, like I said, I just want to help maybe make sure that that's off to a good start. Yeah, and I think in that regard it also helps if everyone works in public. Like, don't I mean, I can understand if people feel protective and they just really want that bounty, they don't want to share anything, but I do feel like working in public helps everyone else at the end of it understand that, okay, this is all the stuff that was done, like this was really worth it, right? We're going to give you this bounty. And of course, in the end, for me personally, it would be amazing if all of this work can flow into the Bitcoin YKit website, the workflows, everything else. But it's completely open, right? I'm not in control of this bounty. So any other questions around this?
I have maybe it's not a very positive question, but I already had a near experience with bounty claiming with a human rights foundation.
Okay.
And I will just bring it up, and I like the idea what you said, that it's a nice idea to figure it out while we're already working on it. We don't have to wait until 3 months to 1 year when we are done, because we can already start talking to them now. First of all, what is the scope? And are we on the right path? And second of all, what is the process of claiming? And that's exactly what I wanted to bring up, because unfortunately, the Human Rights Foundation wants you to sign IRS documents because someone or whoever is claiming it needs to strip in front of the American government agency. And this is something that is like a little bit of a downer in this case. I don't know if it's still the process. Maybe something changed, but nevertheless, I would love to bring it up, because
I can try and find out a little bit more. I was in Oslo. I met with the guys this year. I met them. That's it. Like for the first time. So I don't really know them, but I can try and find out if it's still the same process or if it's changed or something.
Yeah. So I already was in the process of talking to them directly. It was Alex Lee, and
okay.
He in April. It was beginning of April this year. So this was the process there.
Okay.
So
okay.
They need to get this information to the IRS because of taxes, I think.
Yeah.
And when you are a foreigner, etc., everything is fine. But nevertheless, the information will get to the IRS, and from that point on, there are of course countries that are interchanging, the informations about taxes,
Of course.
and then this information can get into your own country, and then suddenly you have to talk to your own tax guys, etc. So this would be nice, because our bounty, what I'm talking about, is still in the air. No one is claiming it, and unfortunate, and this is of course one obstacle that needs to be resolved, in my opinion, while we're already working. It shouldn't stop us, nevertheless, but the idea of the whole bounty is, in my opinion, a little bit in the air, as long as this point is not cleared up. That's it.
Okay. And so just to clarify, is it that you don't like the paperwork involved, or is it that you, out of principle, refuse to share your personal information with the US government?
It's a priority list. First of all, out of principle, I don't see the benefits, to them to know anything about you. But second of all, it's not the paperwork. It's not the extra work. That's not what's bothering me. But for example, if I would claim it as an individual, there is a form. I can even show. I already have this information. I can show it to, later on. Then they know your name, etc., etc. But at the end, they got agreements with other governments. So in my case with my government, and then the loop closes, and maybe my government will come to me and tell me, okay, you earned 2 bitcoins. 2 bitcoins are, I don't know, 60K. We would like to have income taxes, etc., on it. And suddenly, one individual who claimed it, for example, for the group, and it was splitted, etc., internally, one individual has a target on his back. That's my understanding of all these legal documents and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like you have income, you need to pay taxes. I mean,
Exactly.
that sounds actually pretty normal to me. I don't know.
Yeah, sure, but you are one individual, and you are not even keeping the 2 bitcoins, for example.
Yeah, that's true.
Keeping the
If you claim for the group as an individual, then you have to figure that out ahead of time, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and U.S. government IRS is known for overreaching. I think they're the only country where even if, let's say, you're a U.S. resident, you live in some other country, you still have to declare taxes in the U.S. And there's even stuff like a wealth tax. If you give up your U.S. citizenship, you have to pay a percentage of everything you own to the government. Like, they're known for being very aggressive. So, yeah, ideally this would, it's good. It's a good thing to check beforehand.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, it shouldn't stop us, nevertheless.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, Bitcoin. If this is paid out in Bitcoin, then some countries might treat it differently. I don't know where everyone else is from. But should we do a quick intro round?
Sure, good idea.
Okay. Well, I'm Christoph. I'm maintainer of the UI kit. I already talked a lot. I spent a ton of time on it, and the UI kit takes up a ton of time just to maintain it. And I wish it was easier to collaborate on it. And I hope we can make this happen here.
Yeah.
So thanks all for being here.
I continue real quick. I'm Eddie. I work with the kit. Started 2 years ago on Jam and used it there, and also trying to get more and more into open source, and wanted to help with the kit since some time yet.
Yeah, I can continue. I'm a freelance designer and specialized in design systems, and I'm really hyped about the idea of bringing the Bitcoin UI kit into the open source space. I think this is a perfect place where it should be, right? Especially because there are a lot of open source projects around this, and I think this is a really nice task, and especially because we talked already about this a couple of weeks ago, and now we have this bounty. Of course, this is a little bit of extra motivation, but even without the bounty, we would do it, right? Really nice.
Yeah, I can go. I'm trying to orange pill a mega corporate from the inside. I sit in terms of like corporate hierarchy, pretty close to the top to try and actually make it happen. But what I'm used to do is I had a startup of my own. It was a water quality testing kit. It was open source from the get-go, hardware and software. And it's being used in many parts of the world right now because the only alternative for water quality testing was a German brand called Hach, HACH, and that costs thousands of dollars. So we wanted people to be able to know if they can drink from a particular source of water or not. As simple as that. So you give them the ability to, instead of gifting them, what do you call water purifier, and then it breaking down and nobody maintaining it after a year or whatever reason, you give them the technology and the knowledge to actually test their own water and just either drink from a particular source, or if it's poison, go and drink from find another source and go and drink from there. Done a bunch of other things. I'm curious about, getting good design into the Bitcoin space, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, I think I'm next. All right. Good morning, everyone. It's morning over here in Nigeria. My name is Destiny, a product designer. So I've been in product design for about a year now. So I'm still like on a junior level, and currently I'm unemployed. So I'm trying to gain experience by contributing to open source. Part of the contributors for the Layer 5 network, and also contributor for Chaos Africa open source community. And seeing this notification on Twitter, I was very interested. I always wanted to get into contributing for Bitcoin.design, but didn't even know how to get started. And so the bounty was like, oh, a very good motivation. I have interest in design systems. I love design systems, setting up UI kits, and the whole frameworks behind a design system for a project. And that's why I'm very interested in this. And also, I'm very much aware of Penpot. I love the vision for Penpot, and the whole limitation Figma has in its enterprise plan doesn't necessarily support open source. And so I want to see how I can learn from this project and see how I can apply these ideas to other open source projects I'm also a part of and might be a part of very soon. I'm a huge fan of Chris Luders. I'm a huge fan of Christoph. I've really followed your work, and honestly, it's an honor and privilege to be here. And I just want to say thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Precious. I'm a member of like Bitcoin design community. I got interested like yesterday when I saw about this bounty, creating like moving the design systems or like creating design system in Penpot. And that like get interested in what is about design system and see how I can contribute to the project and the bounty.
Okay, it's awesome. Thanks for being here. I am realizing how this bounty is just a big validation. It's like there's a lot of interest in like the moment here where you can just kind of really push it forward. So it's really awesome. But where should we take things next? We're kind of we're about 25 minutes in. I guess I'm also wondering where is everyone with Penpot? What are questions out there?
I could maybe talk a little bit about what I experienced in the last weeks, because I tried to dive in and compare it and etc. So I've installed it even locally, because I realized that oftentimes the SaaS application from them is pretty sometimes unstable, and it is exactly one of the reasons why it's so powerful, because you can install it locally on your machine through Docker, for example, and then you can always switch. Of course, you need to somehow export your file from the cloud to your own desktop. That's a big bonus. And then I also, because someone already posted it here in the chat, the Figma exporter. So this is a plugin that the Penpot community wrote for Figma, where you install it or use it inside Figma on your project, on your files, and you are getting a zip file where the exporter is working, so you will get something. And when you imported it, even I did it with the UI kit, of course, with a huge file, with a very complex file. And I also did it with a very simple UI system. It's called, it's a framework for Daisy UI that is based on Tailwind. There is a file in Figma, and it is not very, huge in size and complexity. So I tried it also on an easier file. And in both cases, the result was really unusable. So I try to, dive deeper and see, is this worth it to clean up the result? Is it a good idea? And what I realized up to this point, and I invite everyone to just try it out on their own files, and because everyone knows their own files and sees exactly how is it a good idea to actually start cleaning up, or is it a better idea to really start from scratch? And I think, especially here in the UI kit, it is definitely the way to start from scratch. Really to start with colors and fonts, etc., and already build it up. And the next part are, I compared, of course, all the, or I tried to figure out my own workflow, and you are way slower, or not that fast with Penpot because of muscle memory. That's already a thing. And then you realize that a lot of features are just not there yet. And for example, nested instances, or even the components.
Properties,
yeah, there's a lot that is still not there, and this, of course, makes it way harder, or you just need to think way more around the corner, because you know that this is possible in Figma. And so maybe to sum it up, Penpot is really 1.5 years behind Figma in features, So everything you learned by now to use in Figma and be smarter, faster, and it's just not there yet. So this is just my feeling up to this point, and
Did you find anything in which Penpot was better? Any aspect where you thought either it's better as is, or there's promise or potential or something that's worth looking into?
Yeah, of course there are some things, small things like handling margins, etc., on the canvas, where you just see it way better, where you just can work directly on the canvas without the panels, where you can manipulate paddings, margins, and stuff. This was nice. I somewhere wrote a list for myself. Don't know yet.
I think this flex grid system is still a bit better, right? So Figma has it now as well, but
exactly. The flex stuff was really good. That's correct. Yeah. But these are all nice to have things. What I missed was like really the groundwork, where you just
and the
variance,
point,
for example, is completely not there, right? When you for example, if you want to start with the design system, one of the first things you are doing after colors and label typography is most of the time buttons, for example, right? Just to figure out the button matrix with different sizes and coloring and use cases, etc., etc. And by now everyone understands or sees the result inside Figma. It is a huge matrix with all the variants, and you can really make a really clean one component that you can use everywhere afterwards. And this is something you cannot do in Penpot. And then we are back to having a lot of different components, and there's just much more manual work to keep them updated if something changes.
But maybe it forces us to build it more simpler, right? Because I talked to Christoph, and I really love to build super complex components in Figma, and with a lot of properties and so on. And he kind of stopped me sometimes because it makes the usage, of course, a bit more complicated, especially for not super Figma pros, right? So maybe I don't know. I haven't did a deep dive like you, Eddie, on Penpot yet, but maybe it's also an advantage for the end user in the end?
This is exactly what I mean. It can be a good thing, right? Because you are limited, so you need to work like you worked in Figma 1.5 years ago. That's what I mean by that. You need to go back and just be a little bit slower and easier and stuff like that. But I think, without even knowing, but I think when we talk to Penpot and their roadmap and figure out what they are trying to do, maybe these features will come with time. So there will be again a point in time where you build up the kit in Penpot and then you are maintaining it, and then I think there will be also this variant and all the other stuff, so that you are rebuilding it again. That's a possibility.
Yeah, so I pulled up Penpot's roadmap. I'll also share the link real quick. This is for 2023. I mean, you never know how, if everything will make it in or not. It's kind of have to be reviewed. But this bounty goes until end of the year, so potential, and we're halfway through the year, right? I guess this was posted in May, so it's not that. Oh, last year, okay. Oh, okay, we'll see. Well, you just have to take it with a grain of salt, the roadmap.
Yeah.
But it says in here components V2. That sounds like a V2 is a big overhaul. UI revamp, grid layout, which they launched, plugins, which I don't think are live, but that could be useful, design tokens, component states and variants. So there's potentially a lot of things that are coming out. History versions. They have a whole section called quality of life, which is interesting. PM tools in integration. So there might be more stuff and if this, the good thing about open source is you can tell what's being worked on. With Figma, you can't. You have to wait once a year, and then it's like, ta-da, change your workflow right now. But in open source, we can just talk to Penpot and we can ask them, like, how are things going? Like, do you need feedback? Do you need help? So maybe it's worth looking at this roadmap and just
Definitely
seeing what's there.
And I think also this is one of the key benefits here, to establish a direct line, or as direct as possible, to them if they are interested. Seeing what we are doing, applying, coming from Figma, and maybe we are a good case for them to study what we are working on, where are the problems, and maybe they will figure out, coming with all the feedback we are having then, to modify the roadmap. I don't know, but having a direct connection that goes in both directions, so they see something what we are doing, we tell them what is stopping us, or maybe that will be a good thing for the future.
Yeah. I did ask, I posted last night in the Penpot forum, just talked about this bounty, and just asking if people have experience, if anyone's interested in discussing this. So no response yet, but I just posted it last night, so we'll see what happens there.
Exactly what I mean.
And last year we had the design-a-thon, and someone from Penpot was supposed to do a workshop, but they just announced this big funding, and they just couldn't do it at the last minute. But so there is, they know Bitcoin design a little bit, and that'd be cool.
I have the reason I posted the Penpot Exporter Figma plugin was maybe if we do it really quickly and claim the bounty and reserve a bit of the bounty to improve the plugin specifically. But so then that's that's like a tap to get from Figma to Penpot very easily, for other projects as well, so that it is a robust exporter tool. And then you create that, of course, and hearing from what you said and your experience that it's not great, that's news to me, because I haven't tried it out. I will try it out, but the idea is to make a road between Figma and Penpot, in my mind.
The thing is, that's of course a valid idea and something everyone should look into. As I said, just try this out. Try out this exporter on your own files where you know what you did. The problem is that even I try to dive deeper what the community built up and on Penpot side, because they are the ones who built this Figma exporter. I don't think it's even the team, but it is a community effort as far as I know. And the whole discussion from, or let's say the conclusion of this plugin is, it's nice to have it, but no one is really believing in it also going forward, because they know how complex files can get. And also what they also have is the problem that Figma's file is proprietary. So it is a lot of reverse engineering, understanding what is Figma doing on their side, and building a plugin for that, and going forward to maintain it, also to have it working all the time when Figma changes stuff more and more.
Fair.
That's a really hard part. So again, just try it out, read up on the community stuff and the thoughts. And as far as I know, everyone gave it a try, and it's nice to have it, but not everyone is believing in it.
Fair
and
enough.
I think going forward also is just Penpot will arrive at a point where they are on the same level as Figma, or near level, and maintaining always something that is bridging the two worlds is also very hard. And I think they will just continue work and focus on their open approach, open file approach, etc. And
that totally makes sense. I mean, that they work on bettering their product instead of like creating a bridge.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really like the general idea of doing this as a pathway for other projects to also switch over to Penpot. So not just from moving the pixels over or the vectors, but also as a team make the switch over. That'd be a good one. I guess something I'm also wondering is, like all these code projects, you're like npm install this and that setup. It asks you like 3 questions, and then it creates this framework, this skeleton of a project for you. I wonder sometimes if there isn't something that we could do here too, where maybe the source of the UI kit is actually in code, and you're in Penpot, you have this little plugin, or maybe you have a file somewhere and you just this is my favorite, this is my primary color, I want to use this font, I need like a send flow, and I need this, and then it's just plop plop plop, puts together this design system for you. Or I don't know, it's just a random vague, wild idea, but I do wonder if, I don't know, maybe there's a more flexible, scalable, different approach that we could potentially take.
Exporter to code then from Figma instead of exporter directly into Penpot.
I mean, then you have to just make sure the code can also go into Penpot then. So as a designer, you don't have to deal with anything. You get this really nice system set up for you.
You remember the idea what we had with these
the playground.
The playground assistant idea. So maybe this is also something we could incorporate on the Penpot side. While switching, also build up this assistant where he exactly asks you what is your main color, what do you need maybe, and but it would live inside Penpot then, and makes it easier to dive into the file, and nevertheless still have all the possibilities inside the file where the user just have an easier onboarding.
But that should be doable right now, right? So
I think so, yeah. But it is another main task on the Penpot file to have someone just thinking about this playground ideas and entry points. But it's a hand-in-hand work, of course. The kit is building up, and then the playgrounds is unlocking more and more.
Yeah, but there will be a lot of next steps, I think. So, of course, the first thing is to bring it to Penpot, right? And I really like the idea the most that we start from scratch. So, of course, look at what we have on Figma right now, but yeah, really building it up with the features and so on that Penpot delivers. Because when I look back, when we switched from Sketch to Figma, then there was an option to import it somehow as well, and I think it worked for simple files. And maybe this was the main reason or the main feature to bring simple files from A to B. But yeah, I tried to convert a design system, and of course, I had to start from scratch because it's too complex. And if I think about the nested now I lost the word properties, yeah, and all the stuff, and then the plugin needs to simplify it somehow and then replace it with something else. I think it's a really difficult task if the target app is not as far as the source, right?
Yeah. And something else is that Penpot has an API, and I think their file format that they're using is just annotated SVGs. And because it's open source, we can build all kinds of other tools for it if we wanted to. Like the website could directly call the API and load files and text and whatever from there. You could build a website that talks to Penpot and modifies stuff or something. Like you can do all kinds of crazy stuff that you cannot do in Figma. Maybe that's more for the developers, something to tinker with. But if you think about Noster, which is just this communicate, it's like Noster just describes a way to send information around and how to organize it. And then everyone's just hacking away and building their completely own things. Maybe with Penpot, we can also push a bit more into building unique stuff for it.
I totally agree, and that's the power of the whole switch to Penpot, because after that point, when we're really, let's say, brought everything from scratch to that point, and you are able to start and work where more or less the same as in Figma. One big question is, what are we supporting then afterwards? Is the Figma world like freezing in features and it's not maintained anymore? Maybe that's also something to think about and decide, of course. But nevertheless, as you said, we are from that point on, we are in the complete open source world, and if it stays open source forever, and I hope so, then yeah, we have so many other cool possibilities to think about and make it even more user friendly, dynamic, etc. Stuff that Figma couldn't even do, especially in the free tier.
Does anyone know how? Does anyone know how the collaboration between designing in Penpot and how to hand over to developers or collaboration developers? Like how is it like in Penpot? Because like one of the benefit of the design system is like when developers want to like handle a project also, they can easily use the UI kit or expand on the project.
Um, so one thing wanted to tell, because I looked also into history and the idea behind Penpot is they want Penpot to be really a developer focused tool. So they are really bringing design and development from the first second into this one world of Penpot, and they are building it and focusing around developers also. It's even more developers than designers, funny enough. And their idea is, to really bridge between these worlds and not having not separating the world, where designers are living inside Figma, for example, and there is a point in time where they do a handoff and the developer comes into Figma and it's not their natural habitat and they are struggling. And this is exactly what Penpot don't want or want to fix. They want to have an environment where the developers are feeling home and work really in a collaborative way.
No, okay. So it's sometimes on their roadmap that they are currently building.
So right now, I think Penpot has a inspect tab, right?
Mm-hmm.
That basic one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing to look into. So we're about 50 minutes in. If we give it another 10 minutes or so, I'm not sure if anyone who listens to this now has any idea of what to do next, where to take things. So maybe we just talk about any more questions and maybe next steps or what, this group here doesn't have to work together, right? It's a bounty. Anyone can do whatever they want. If this group works together, that'd be super awesome. And I think we can do something more and better and cooler in the end. But I don't know. What are you thinking right now? What would you like to do? What's open for you? What's unanswered? What do you think should happen next?
I think it makes definitely sense to work together, right? Because I mean, this is the idea of open source, and I think it would make totally sense. And we know how big the Bitcoin UI kit is already, and doing this completely alone, I think is a bit crazy and would take a lot of time. And so I think it would be very cool. But of course, we need a plan, right? So how often do we meet and who's doing what and stuff like this? I'm not sure if we can deal with this in the next 10 minutes. I don't think so.
No.
But we should make a plan for this, for the collaboration.
Yeah, I would suggest really having a second call. And in this second call, I would suggest to open up the Figma file right now, the state what we have right now, create a Penpot file in parallel, invite everyone into the Penpot file, and then first of all, went through the Figma file and really cut it down into smaller chunks. So what do we have? How is it built up? Really go in deep into the file where we understand we have like all these tokens. Okay, someone is also taking notes. We have different tokens, for example. We have different components and stuff. And just to make the Figma file more transparent, understand it, and build up on the other side a file, a Kanban board, I don't know, and have all these tasks. So hopefully tasks are coming out of this that can be tackled, I think, in parallel. So of course, if someone already tries to build up components, I think this is a little bit too early. But starting with the tokens, building this up, and just transferring bit by bit, task by task to Penpot. And while we're transferring, everyone is incentivized to look into Penpot and to get familiar with it. I think the process will be slow at the beginning, but because we can work in parallel on the one file, could get faster really quick.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. I would also say before laying out 100 screens and all of this stuff, it's almost better if we set up at some point set up a very simple Penpot file with like 2 colors, 2 text styles, 3 components with all the states and 2 screens, and just make sure this whole system works really smoothly. And once that's proven, then it can be rolled out to all this other stuff can be done. But that sounds like a really good. I would also say that there are probably a bunch of people that cannot make this call or cannot make any calls due to time zone differences and all of this stuff. So calls are awesome to sync, but I would try to make sure that participation in this effort is possible without ever joining any calls.
And I think what is very important if we are working like collaboratively and with a lot of different people maybe and people jumping in and out, is that we're doing a very good documentation on the site inside of Penpot, so that we have some rules, not to limit us really, but so that we have still a consistency inside of that system, and not everyone is building it differently, and maybe simple things like layer names and stuff like this, so that it's in the end that we don't build together like, I don't know, like 6 to 10 people, and then we have a lot of chaos in the end, but and that we need to rework it in the end to have it clean.
Go ahead.
I would tiny thing. I would almost suggest 2 Penpot files. One that is just 2 colors, 2 fonts, 2 everything, and then start like scratch. And second, just so that everyone has an idea of how the exporter works, because my hunch is that everyone's going to try and use the exporter. Just okay, I completed, can I claim the bounty? But so just do it first so that everyone can see how bad or how good the end result is. I will of course try it out on my own file first, but then if we just do it publicly so that everyone understands, the state that the exporter plugin is at.
Yeah. You brought up an interesting point there. It's about like, let's see how quickly we can claim the bounty, which, I mean, for me, that's just not a thing, right? Some other people may think
someone else will do it.
Try to do the minimal amount of effort to just get the money, which obviously comes.
Someone else will do it, is what I mean.
But someone else also needs to, by claiming it at the Human Rights Foundation, show the results, etc. So it is not a just one-click exporter usage. Put your name on it.
But to show that it isn't that to the others is what I mean. I don't mean that we should claim. I mean we just do the file and have it in Penpot. I didn't say claim.
Yeah, I think the something important here is that we come up with a plan and we say, this is the point that we're going to shoot for. Like, this is kind of the bounty worthy point that we're going to try to get to, and we can just openly declare it. And then if someone else comes around and they just use the importer and drop off something very simple, and then it becomes very obvious, who's doing the work and is this like which effort is appropriate for the bounty. So,
What do you wanted to show here, Christoph?
So this is the design squiggle, which I like a lot. At the beginning, your design process, it's just a total mess, right? You just kind of do random stuff and you ditch most of it. The 4 Ds of design also match that, which is discover, define, design, deliver. So at the beginning, you do wild research, you go back and forth, I think that's kind of what happens. Like, Eddie, what you said, you imported it and then you research it and you ditched it and you try something else and it's not going to work and you ditch it. And each of us can do our own ditch things, and then we'll gather it all together. And then as we go through this messy part, a solution, a product, an outcome will kind of become refined, right? As we go through it. But at the beginning, it's going to be messy, and you can be okay doing, like, at the beginning, you don't need to wait for a plan. You can explore stuff, you can be wild. And as we kind of move forward, like if it's still wild at the end, then maybe we're not organized enough. But ideally, typically, if you work well together and you kind of are on the same page, you end up converging on something. But I would just say, like, right now we're in the kind of the wild phase. So just feel free to do stuff and throw things out there, and we'll sift through everything.
Sure. I didn't mean to document from now on. I mean, we should document some stuff as you're doing already, right? Like, what is the plan and so on. But of course, we need to figure out first how we build it in the best possible way, and then find a solution together, and then having some rules later.
Yeah. No, I also mean for anyone watching in this potentially, and you don't have to wait for the Kanban board. The Kanban board will be awesome to have in the tasks, but feel free to just go out there, explore things, chip in, ask questions. Let's just make stuff
What we
happen.
also would need is just to be transparent with all our progress. So having a changelog somewhere and updating it cleanly from the beginning makes it easier for everyone else to dive in weeks, and know what already happened and where it's roughly going.
Where is this somewhere? Is it Discord or is it?
I would keep definitely a link inside the Penpot file when we create one.
Yeah,
So
that
you
makes
will
sense.
always have
In Penpot.
just a page there where just about changelog, right? And making it, linking it to Discord, to Google Docs, etc. It will come naturally.
How about I update the Bitcoin UI Kit website and I insert a thing here that says, "Hey, there's a thing going on right now to post this to Penpot. Here are all the links you need if you want to get started." And then
even more pressure.
yeah, but then it could link. So we have this issue from 3 weeks ago in the GitHub repo about exploring Penpot support, and this could be where every time we have a meeting or something happens, we just put the links in there, and maybe we have a document for all of our ongoing notes, and I can just link all of that stuff up. And then you just go to bitcoinuikit.com and you just have the links. And the reason why I think it could work, because I'd set up the same for the Bitcoin Core app. This is the design docs for the Bitcoin Core app. At the top, you have links to the Kanban board, the website, the design repo, current design tasks, Figma files, and then you just need to know one location and you can just quickly get to everything. How does that sound?
Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense actually.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll put something together today, and then you can just let me know what's missing or what you want to change. Like, feel free to shape all of this stuff. Like I said, I'm just maintainer here. You're gonna do the work.
You're always trying it to delegate, and at the end, you're a part of it. No chance, Christian.
It works.
Nice try.
I have to resist. Okay.
You cannot resist the power.
It's just too much fun. Okay, so we have a minute or so. Any other questions? Any thoughts? Anything else? Anything formal about the bounty or anything else you want to figure out?
Yeah.
Do we have a place on Discord maybe, right, where we talk about this project, or because I have the feeling that it's now in a big chat, and maybe it should be a bit reduced.
I think there's a place on Bitcoin on Discord, Bitcoin UI Kit and Icon. There's a Discord channel.
Okay, this is just for the topic then.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this channel has been super active. So
okay.
I would just use that channel.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we have a Discord, we have here a GitHub, we have the design kit, what Christoph wants to update, and we will have a Google Docs somewhere, right? Already.
Yeah, and a lot of times Google Docs are throwaways, but if we can use one as a continuously running meeting notes, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I'm excited. Thank you all for joining and chipping in. And like I said, no need to wait for calls. Just start chatting, start doing things, ask questions, let's figure this out, make something cool happen.
Nevertheless, you wanted yesterday. You wanted a second call for everyone, or are still doing it, or do you want to plan the next one? Just
how about we just set up another one now in, I don't know, a week or so. Maybe that gives everyone a bit of time to also look into some of these things.
Perfect.